Tobin, it's great to have you on the show, especially since it's your first time. So welcome to the Christian Rock 20, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you stay fairly busy because your main gig is the lead singer of the band Flatfoot 56, but then you also have another band that is more or less you called 6'10". How do you find time to keep up with all this?
Where there's a will, there's a way. I guess is the best way to put it.
All right, cool. So, of course, one of the main reasons why we're talking is Flatfoot 56 just dropped a brand new record, and this has been the first one in a while. Tell us a little bit about the album Odd Boat.
Sure. We started writing it about 2015 is when we started writing it, and then we just kind of took our time with it. We weren't really under any pressure as far as time was concerned. And we really knew we needed to put out a record. We wanted to. It's been a long time. And yeah, just trying to, writing a record's really interesting because it's you want to make sure it's authentic. You want to make sure that it's timely, and you want to make sure that it's relevant to where the world's at and what's going on. But the album's really good. We got 12 tracks total. We have 2 B-sides that are on deluxe package on the album. So there are some final releases out there that have 14 songs. But yeah, there's just a lot of really strong themes, really strong message of how to address the world. How do you deal with adversity? How do you deal with uncertainty? How do you deal with dissension amongst people? How do you approach that? Very rich record when it comes to themes. So a lot of heavy stuff dealt with in it, but it's also has a new maturity to it that the band, I think, it was kind of come into in the last few years or so. So we're really excited the way it sounds, and really excited with how it's been received so far as well.
Nice. Now, you talked about wanting the record to be timeless or timely, I guess, and be very relevant to the way things are right now. And you also mentioned the idea of taking your time with it and making sure that you get it right. Was that almost a competing factor in some ways? Because, I mean, did you ever find yourself writing a song that by the time you felt like it was good, it wasn't timely anymore?
No, actually, it's kind of weird how that works because I think sometimes when you go into writing, you just realize that, like, okay, Lord, how do you want to speak through this? What do you want to say through it? And by the time it's done, it's almost kind of crazy because it's almost prophetic. It's like it kind of comes to this point of being really relevant. You never even realized that it was that relevant when you were writing it. And then all of a sudden, when the album is being mixed, the guy who's mixing it writes this like, man, this is right on for what's going on right now in the world. You're just kind of like, whoa, I guess you're right. That's kind of amazing. We're just kind of being open to whatever would come, and there's a lot of thick things, that were involved. So.
Nice. That's nice when it works out like that. And I think definitely God has a hand in some of these things that we wouldn't have thought that maybe, I don't know. I don't want to say that he would care about to some degree, but it's amazing the things that God has to obviously have his hand in, because otherwise there's just some major dumb luck running around. But, I definitely don't think it's that. It's kind of funny how sometimes I get the older that I get, or the more I go, I realize how much more he cares about than I thought. And it's just kind of amazing to see how much involved he wants to be in our lives, how much he wants to be, not in, like, he wants to be in relationship with us in every aspect, and he wants to heal the wounds in us and heal the wounds in others around us. I'm very interested to see how far he's willing to go to be a part of your life, and it's kind of neat, Yeah, for sure. And aside from the taking your time and wanting to get it right, what was the experience like putting this record together as opposed to previous releases from you guys?
Well, it was really interesting because we were working with a new drummer. We have a new drummer named Conrad also. He's a great guy. He's really awesome. And so we were kind of going into a new season of writing because we had a different writing style introduced into the band that is great asset to the album. So there was just a lot of, there was some adjustment on that end during the writing portion of it. But we also decided to do something with this record that was a little different from previous records, in that we decided to do it live, which means that we didn't match up everything with a click track. We really wanted to get at the root of what Flatfoot sounds like at a live show. That live show element is something that we've always really wanted to capture. And so we basically set it up that the engineer would listen to it, make sure that our pacing wasn't sped up or slowed down too drastically. And we got the feel that we wanted, definitely. Like, there's just more of a real raw feel that we were really craving after. So it was a great process. We did a lot of our own production, our own producing on it. and then have some insight from Matt Allison, who owns the studio that we were recording at in Chicago called Atlas Studios. And it really turned out, it kind of, when you go into the studio, you don't know how it's going to turn out. It's kind of a nerve-wracking experience with that. But then these amazing things come out of it. You're like, oh my God, like, it's incredible how this works, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Now, how was that on your nerves doing it in a more live fashion rather than kind of having the safety net of doing a bunch of stuff to it on the back end and knowing that was going to happen?
Well, the album, some of my favorite records were done actually at the studio that we did our album at. And we were working with the guy who did those records. So I was excited because I knew that he knew what he was doing. I think that's a big part.
Right.
When you're in the hands of a very capable producer and engineer, you definitely are. It helps with the nerves part, you know. Plus, I'm in a band full of great guys that all have a very strong opinions and perspectives on how to do it. There's nothing worse than putting a record out where one person doing all of the production and all of the visionary stuff, and the other guys are just like, oh, whatever you want. You know, they were all very much a part of the process. It's just really helpful. Yeah, we all were very excited about how it turned out.
Very cool, man. I think that's fantastic. Now, I'm sure there's some people who are probably tuning into kind of the middle of this interview somehow. And unless we forget to mention, I mean, you guys are a Celtic punk band, which I'm sure is one of those things that has got to be interesting to answer when, like, you meet somebody at a gas station who figures out very quickly that you're a band, and then to explain that you guys are a Celtic punk band, which, of course, there's not just a ton of in the world. But how do you feel like that has shaped your experience in the music industry, and especially even more, I guess, through the even smaller niche of like the Christian fringe genre of Christian rock?
You know, we're a Celtic punk band, which the punk scene in Christian music is very, 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 very small. It used to be a lot bigger, actually. And then to add the Celtic punk thing to it, I mean, I can only think of one, maybe two bands in Christian music history that could come even close to that categorization.
Right.
And they were not even that well known either. So, yeah, people kind of look at us sideways sometimes. They're like, you're what? You know? But then Christian music in general, it's just it's not a huge pond. There's not a ton of bands. I mean, in the overall, in the secular realm or whatever, there's a scene for it. I'm actually heading down to a cruise of a band called Flogging Molly is putting Cruise to the Bahamas together at the festival for 3 days. And there's a lot of Celtic bands playing on it with them. You know, we're going down to do that. But, like, yeah, there's within the Christian realm, it's very much not as consistent. You know, this is Celtic bands, but it's kind of a real niche thing. So our experience has been real good. Like, it's one thing to stand out. So it's also another thing, you know, like, we've been a part of, when we were a young band, we did a battle with a band in Minnesota one time, and there's a Christian place that threw the show, and they told us, we went through the whole thing, you know, we had bagpipes, we were playing punk rock, and the judges said that we were not unique enough, and then they gave they gave the award to a band that sounded like Pillar, you know, so like, and we were just like, I don't, at the time that was like the biggest style, and we were kind of like, we're not, what? It was very, I just didn't know what to do with it at all. They were like, we don't even know what's going on here. So, yeah, so yeah, it's just one of those things too, where I think, you know, the punk scene, which is the place that we spend most of our time at, is very much a scene that is not understood by a lot of Christians at all.
Right.
Especially the scenes that we're in, like, most Christians don't even know that this stuff exists generally because it's not a part of it's not on their radar. And you know, with festivals like Cornerstone, some of the harder Christian festivals kind of slowly going the way of the Buffalo and not existing anymore. It's becoming much and much. So, but there still is bands out there trucking along, just loving Jesus and playing their music, you know. So it's kind of a thing, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Do you find that there are a different set of assumptions that Christian fans, or maybe even Christians who show up at a concert of yours, whether they're there to see you specifically or not, make about you because you guys are a Celtic punk band that they might not make about, say, a more quote-unquote normal Christian rock band?
I don't know. We've had some funny experiences. I mean, I think, I don't know, it's still where the Lord's led us, like, as a band. Like, I feel like there's a lot of places that most Christians would go to.
Right.
That we go to. And then there's other places where, I mean, and then there's a lot of Christians that would. They don't care. You know, they're just like, let's see music, it will still. And so, I don't think I don't know, but Christian rock has been something that's kind of changed a lot in the years since we were on Flickr Records, and, on the same label as like Miller, and a lot of those old bands, Fireflight, those kind of bands. So it's definitely changed a bit. But we were always kind of this odd thing. I'll never forget when we first signed with Flickr. The guys from Audio Adrenaline were the guys that signed us on that independent label. And they were just kind of like, we really want to experiment here. We want to see if Christians will take to this Celtic punk thing. It seems to be doing well in the secular realm with bigger bands in that scene. But let's see if Flatfoot, let's see if people take to it. Let's see if it works. Looks like ska worked in the 90s, And
yeah.
we saw a lot of success in some ways, but then the label got bought by Tobin or Sony BGMI. They were like, "Well, we don't have a use for this. This doesn't fit the mold."
Right.
And we were dropped it. We had to move on. But so it's just I think when it comes, the fans are the ones that are always way more open to things than the industry is. I think there's a mold that is acceptable within the Christian music industry that we really didn't fit in. It just didn't fit at all for what their vision was. But we were kind of like this odd boat, really that drove around and played Celtic stuff. They didn't know what to do with it. So yet we'd go to like Morrison and pull 2,000 people to our shows, and be one of the shows that everybody wanted to go see at that festival. So it's kind of just, and then Sunshine was another one that we did huge shows. We'd headline the night, and yet we were this kind of strange band that metalheads would all kind of look at and be like, "That's funny, the bagpipes," but the kids always got it. The kids were like, "This energy, this is angst, this is where I'm at right now." And this is old school for the guys that grew up in the '80s listening to old school punk rock. And I like it. That there's a lot of people we were able to reach, but I feel like there's just kind of this disconnect sometimes with how to interpret it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm just being real, honestly, because it's real. Some of this stuff is it is an odd thing to see a band get up on stage at one of the guys that's wearing a kilt and they're playing bagpipes. It's strange, but it's extremely fun. It's fun music, and we've been doing a lot more like Scottish and Highland Celtic festivals over the last few years, and those have been really a blast. There's a spirit of joy over it. That's really neat.
Cool. Now, you guys are out on tour right now. What is the rest of the tour looking like for you guys at this point?
We have there's 3 more shows till we hit Miami. We're out with a band called Mickey Rickshaw from Boston. They're a Celtic punk band from there, and great guys, younger guys that are kind of starting out, and we're excited to have them with us. And we were in Nashville last night. We're heading down towards Miami. In Miami, we're going to get on a Royal Caribbean cruise liner and take a cruise to the Bahamas for 3 days with some pretty big bands. I think there's probably about 2,500 people are going to be on the boat, and we're going to be a part of a festival for 3 days. And then when we get back, we're going to drive up to North Carolina and play at a legendary punk club up there called Milestone.
Okay.
And then go to Baltimore, and then from Baltimore we play Baltimore on a Wednesday night, and Thursday night we have to be back in Chicago to play on that Thursday night, and then at St. Patrick's Day, which we're playing about 6 hours worth.
Wow.
And then the following day we have another show near Chicago for another one. So it's going to be a busy few days. Then we'll be back after that. Then we go out in April out the West Coast with another band that's a kind of a bluegrass, Americana folk, really crazy wild band called Larry and Splash. Okay. So they're really fun.
Nice. Very sweet, man. I like that. That's awesome. Now, we're going to play a couple of tracks off of Odd Boat, I'm hoping. And what tracks do you think you might want us to play, and what would you like to tell us about them?
Sure. I think the first song we'll send to you guys is have you here is a song called Penny. It was the first single off the record. It's a bit fast, but it also breaks into this awesome part at the end that has a very anthemic female vocal that comes in. My wife actually came in and sang on the song. And then it's a very sing-along part at the end. But the song basically comes from the perspective of two characters, two biblical characters, actually. One of them is the demoniac, who was basically a person who was cast out of his community. He was crazy, he was wild, unacceptable, and Jesus came in and just completely changed his whole story really quick in an awesome way. And then the other story is the story of Mary Magdalene, who was brought before Jesus and was being threatened with being stoned to death And the perspective of the song is addressing the issue of self-worth and asking the question, the statement is, I've done all these things. I am not worthy of anything. And I've gone too far to be redeemed. And then the end of the song, when my wife's vocals come in, are basically the response that God gives when we give to that issue. It becomes a very, it's a really relevant conversation we have with a lot of people of, oh man, I am way too far gone for God to be interested in me at all, or I'm just a horrible person. And that's something that this song really picks on head on.
Fantastic. I like that, man. I think that is something that so many of us need to hear. And it's funny because I don't think it's even necessarily a correlation between how bad of a person you really are. Sometimes it's so easy to get into your own head and think that the thing that whatever the thing that you've done that you think is such like a deal breaker with God is that thing for you, even though it may not be half of what the person standing right next to you has done, and they feel totally good and forgiven. But, it's just so hard to give that up sometimes.
It's true. I mean, the Bible is full of a lot of very broken people that God used in huge ways. I mean, Moses was a murderer, Samson was an adulterer. You have David, who was an adulterer and a very violent person as well. You know, all these characters that are just, according to the world standards, even to the world standards, are bad people.
Yeah.
And God redeems them and calls them out and says that he loves them and works with them. I think that it's no mistake that the Bible is full of characters that are full of a lot of flaws, and yet God still calls them to be a higher thing and to a higher standard. And I think that needs to be the message of the church. We forget that sometimes. Our mandate as Christians is to pull the gold out of people and allow them to see themselves the way that God sees them. And sometimes all we do is just focus on how much people suck,
Yeah,
and that's not the heart of God at all. He wants to show them the design that He originally gave them, and that is still redeemable through His grace. So, His heart is very much for people, and He loves them dearly. I see this all the time, and it's been more relevant these last few days. But if people were so worthless, why would Jesus come and die for them?
Right.
If there was no value there in the first place, they were so far gone. Why would the Son of God still, he still saw value in it. And we were created for a purpose, and He wants to redeem that to Himself. So He's given us a chance. It's awesome. Beautiful.
No kidding, man. I 100% agree. And what other song do you think you might want us to play off the record?
Sure. Stutter. The song Stutter is actually a song we're releasing a music video for here in the next few weeks. And the song actually kind of is the perspective of someone that is been backed into a corner. They are facing off against things that are adversity from all sides. And it's just kind of like, this is where I'm at, where I'm staying. This is my resolve to make it through this. It's just kind of a song of strength when you're feeling hopeless, just saying, you know what, I resolve this here. This is what I'm going to be at. This is what I believe. I'm sticking with it.
Fantastic, man. I'm all about that. Cool. Well, dude, thank you so much for spending some time with us. I know that you guys are out busy burning up the road dogging it, but I'm glad that you were able to take some time and talk to us about the new record and kind of about where you guys are at. And if nothing else, you guys are the very first Celtic punk band to ever be on this show, which I'm sure is not uncommon for you to hear.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you having us, man. That's awesome, and we're thankful that you invited us to be played. That's amazing. We appreciate it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. We'll do it again, and you guys stay safe out on the road, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much, brother. Appreciate